Special Operations Force raid in Syria. Let's bring in a Republican congressman from Texas, John Ratcliffe. He's a member of the House Judiciary, Intelligence, and Homeland Security Committees. He's also a former federal prosecutor. Congressman, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks very much for joining me this morning.
Good morning, Maria.
Your reaction to al-Baghdadi being taken out?
Well, much like when al-Qaeda's leader, Osama bin Laden, was killed, I think the death of al-Baghdadi, the head of ISIS, is something that all Americans, Republicans, Democrats, really people all around the world should be grateful for. Someone who was dedicated to the extermination of entire races based on the religious belief is gone from the planet, and that's a really good thing.
So it certainly is a good thing for the safety, I guess, of America. You're in the Homeland Security Committee. Tell us about the homeland right now and whether or not we have seen ISIS return to being in business. I mean, obviously now with its leader gone, that takes us into a different realm with ISIS. But how would you characterize ISIS today?
Well, I do see parallels with al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda was never the same after bin Laden was gone, and we would hope that that ISIS would track that type of demise. President Trump and the Trump administration had already largely decimated and destroyed ISIS, the body of the snake, but yesterday they cut off the head of the snake in killing Baghdadi, and as you heard the president...
Planning further attacks, Congressman, what do we know in terms of what the plans were, and was there a treasure trove of documents that our special operations team was able to get as a result of taking him out, given the fact that they were on the ground and had access to where he was?
Well, the president said they did. We expected that would be the case. Unfortunately, the Intelligence Committee that I serve on hasn't been spending a whole lot of time on these issues. We've been caught up in Adam Schiff's secret impeachment inquiry, so we haven't had a briefing on these issues. But I am certain that, much like what happened with al-Qaeda, that the documents that we recovered, the treasure trove of information that has already been related by the president, is going to have a profound impact on operations in the Middle East of all terrorists. And the president has been dedicated to this, as General Jack Keane just said, doggedly determined to make sure that ISIS was gone during his administration. And he's going to continue wherever these folks go, however they may reconstitute. Radical Islamic terrorists have been a priority of President Trump and this administration, and yesterday just proved that he kept another promise with respect to this.
Congressman, you said you have not had a briefing on these issues in the Intel Committee. When was the last time the Intel Committee had a briefing with regard to the threat of terrorism?
It's been well over a month. I don't know the exact time. All I can remember is one ambassador after another that I've never heard of before. That's where we've been spending our time, unfortunately. And hopefully we can get past that and get on to, you know, obviously things like this. The world is moving around regardless of this baseless impeachment inquiry that I've been spending far too much time on. These are the things that we should be focusing on. I'm grateful that President Trump hasn't been distracted by all of this, and that our forces, who deserve so much credit, have continued to keep their eye on the target, to keep the American people safe. And we're going to continue to do that despite the distractions that the Democrats, the shenanigans that they're engaged in to try and win an election instead of keeping America safe.
So just to be clear, with the Democrats in the majority, Adam Schiff is the chairman of your committee, the Intel Committee, and it's Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, who will decide who you interview, what hearings you do, and plan on what kind of briefings you get. Is that right?
That's right, and you know, I can't remember the last briefing we had on Syria, but I'm going to get one tomorrow at the Intel Committee, and so you know, they're at least paying lip service to it at this point in time.
The president a moment ago said that al-Baghdadi walked into this tunnel where there was no out, and he brought children with him, then detonated all of them, including the children. Does this tell you anything about who he is, who he was in terms of his own leadership of ISIS?
Absolutely. You have to understand the mentality of radical Islamic terrorists. And, you know, they are dedicated to the extermination of people who do not believe in their their ideology, and they are committed. I will kill you. If I don't kill you, my children will kill you. It's a generational approach, and they are sick individuals, but they are committed to their sick ideology, and that's why it takes a persistent, dedicated approach like the one the Trump administration has taken. Yesterday was a very good day to make the world safer, but as the president made very clear, this is just something that has to continue, and we can't allow it to proliferate in other places. We have to continue to chase these folks down and obviously hold them to justice, as was done yesterday.
All right, Congressman, stay with us. We want to talk a little more about those testimonies that you just referred to in this impeachment inquiry. We'll take a short break, and then we'll come back with more. John Ratcliffe, the congressman from Texas, on Sunday Morning Future. Stay with us. Leader Abu Bakr Al-Baghdadi is dead. Our special operations forces cornered him, and then he blew himself up. You said a moment ago you have not had a briefing on Syria in a long time in the Intel Committee that you, of course, are a member on. You have been focused on these impeachment inquiry testimonies, and on Friday you had one as well. We want to show you what some of your colleagues said after that testimony. Here was Kevin McCarthy and Devin Nunes on Fox News last week.
We had John Ratcliffe destroy Taylor's whole argument.
Congressman Ratcliffe, tell us what happened.
Well, we can't really talk about it, but what we're finding is just his questioning in 90 seconds refuted everything of what Adam Schiff believes out there. There is no quid pro quo.
Congressman, we know that you are limited in terms of what you can say about these testimonies, but what can you tell us about that quid pro quo argument?
Well, what the Democrats wanted to believe was that Ambassador Taylor's testimony would support what the whistleblower said, when in fact his testimony established the opposite. He established as a matter of law and as a matter of fact that a quid pro quo involving military aid could not have occurred on July 25th in the call between Trump and Zelensky, because neither Zelensky or any Ukrainian was aware that there was a hold on military aid on July 25th. So as much as the Democrats who quickly tried to spin out of that and say, well, when we said quid pro quo on July 25th, we really meant sometime in August, and they were supported by the New York Times and the Washington Post printing articles saying, well, the Ukrainians found out about it in the middle of August. It doesn't matter. It still raises a real question now about the whistleblower's credibility and motivations, because the whistleblower came in to meet with Chairman Schiff before that. I want to understand why this whistleblower apparently has the ability to see into the future, came in to complain to Chairman Schiff about a quid pro quo that had not yet occurred. So, again, the whistleblower's testimony has become more essential. The most important witness we should be hearing from is that person, because it'll tell us whether or not this was organic or whether it was orchestrated.
Congressman, we know that the Islamic leader Abu Bakr Al-Baghdadi has blown himself up as he was cornered.
The rest of America confronted the worst of mankind, and the good guys won. The good guys and the good gals won. The dog, trying to find out the name of the dog. Pray for the dog. It was severely injured, but it's just reminds me of the team concept of the military. I've been talking to the president for months about the war on terror, and every time I would bring up the topic, he would tell me without any hesitation, I'm going to get that blank guy. And I can't use the word on television, but the president's been determined for a very long time to bring Baghdadi to justice, and I want to compliment him and his team for bringing about a result that I think is a game changer in the war on terror. The war is by no means over. The caliphate is dead, and the leader of the caliphate is dead, and that's a big deal. When bin Laden was killed, that was a big deal. And I complimented President Obama. That was a hard call he made, to go into Pakistan and kill bin Laden. What the president did last night was a hard call. These things are not predetermined to go well, and it just tells you how good our people are. And what the president said today was very reassuring to me, that when it comes to ISIS and other terrorist groups, We're coming after you wherever you go, as long as it takes to protect our country, our way of life. I just end on this. ISIS is a depraved organization that's ever existed in the history of the world. They're religious Nazis. They cannot be accommodated. They cannot be negotiated with. They have to be destroyed and marginalized. And here's the good news for all of us. Very few people over there buy into what these crazy people are selling. And it will always be in our interest, I believe, to partner with people over there who are on the front lines to make sure that ISIS types never come here, and that we replace this ideology with something more sustainable. To the American people, this has been a long, difficult war. And I understand what the president wants to do. He wants to reduce our footprint and lower our cost, and he's right to want to do that. But I'm very encouraged by what I see in Syria. Maybe a new strategy that focuses on building up the lives of people in the region, having a small footprint of Americans led by the local populations, and securing the oil is a really smart idea, quite frankly. That's how ISIS survived for so long. If you can take Syrian oil out of the hands of ISIS, Iran and other enemies, and put it into the hands of the Kurds and people who fought and died along our side, then that is a really transformational event in the Iraq-Syrian theater. And what I see developing in Syria is very promising.
Senator Graham, you just said that the war is by no means over. About the withdrawal of most of those troops from Syria.
Well, when it comes to what's happening in Syria, I like what I see. We've had the president's position and my position is really not that far off. We really don't need a bunch of Americans in the safe zone. The international community should do that. But some American forces deployed with the SDF to make sure the oil does not ever fall back into the hands of ISIS, and Iran's not the biggest winner, makes a lot of sense. When it comes to terrorism, the president changed the rules of engagement. You think the caliphate destroyed itself? He made a conscious decision when he went to Iraq to change the game when it came to destroying ISIS. He's had a determination to destroy the caliphate unlike anybody I've ever met. Now the question is how to keep it down. I think we got a plan now to keep it down that meets his national security objectives of reducing our footprint and having others do more.
Questions for you, sir, if you don't mind. And I want to lay these out separately. The president, in his remarks, mentioned Turkey's cooperation when it came to this operation, and I'm wondering if that changes your view on sanctions. I also want to ask, well, the president called you. We understand he did not call other members of the Gang of Eight, even after the operation had concluded. Was that a mistake?
I don't know who he's calling family members right now. I was in town, so I was right down the street.
Did you call family members?
He's calling some family members now who've been victims of ISIS and
the Foleys, perhaps.
And I guess what I would say today is that what I see happening in Syria makes sense to me. That the president destroyed the caliphate. He's asking others to do more, and he's right when it comes to Turkey. I think the invasion has been disruptive, but at the end of the day, if we can continue to partner with the Kurds, secure the oil revenues for their sake, not Iran's sake, not for ISIS' sake, help pay the cost of the operations, makes eminent sense to me. And I think the president is right to say that the conflict between Syrian Kurds and Turkey needs to be resolved. The safe zone needs to be occupied by forces other than the United States. I agree with that.
Senator, it's no secret that the president wanted to pull out of Syria last year. Without our troop presence there, would an operation like this have been possible?
You could probably have done this from Iraq, to be honest with you. I don't know exactly the details of the operation, but I think the president is focusing on the resources that made ISIS so strong for so long. The caliphate was funded basically by many sources of revenue, but one of the chief sources of revenue was Syrian oil. So if you take that off the table, the terrorists in the region or in the world are hurt, and Iran containment makes sense. The Iranians would love to get this oil. The Russians have shown some desire to go down here. And I can't say this now, but I was in the Situation Room, and I'll talk to you later on. The president made some pretty firm statements to people in the region that you come into this area at your own peril.
Senator, you very recently said you thought that the president's decision to withdraw could be the biggest mistake of his presidency. Today, you're affirming it as a positive one.
What I'm saying today is that the killing of Baghdadi is a game changer in the war on terror. Doesn't mean the war is over. The president's determination over time has paid off. We don't give him enough credit for destroying the caliphate. He did this in months, not years, because he changed the rules of engagement. So what I want to talk about today is those brave men and women who planned the operation, who went in on the ground and killed this bastard. Chief source of revenue for a long time for ISIS. It is now in the hands of the Syrian Democratic Forces, which are Arab and Kurds, mostly Kurds, with a partnership with the United States. So, no, this doesn't violate any law. In my view, what it does is just good, common sense foreign policy. I want to congratulate the president for making sure that the oil revenues never fall into the hands of the bad guys. And the way you secure this is a win-win. The SDF will get more money if we can modernize the oil fields. We're not going over there to enrich America. We're over there to help our allies deny our enemy resources that will allow them to get stronger over time. And finally, and this is okay, to lower the cost to us. The president mentioned something. I had a bill that would make our aid to Iraq alone, that could be forgiven but also paid back over time. Here's the one thing that's been missing in the Mideast: skin in the game. If we had made our aid to Iraq alone, they would have probably acted differently than if it's just a grant. Now the SDF, who have been good partners, have a chance with our help to increase revenue for the benefit of their people. They'll have more incentive to fight harder. Everything changes when the people you're fighting with have skin in the game. Now, I want to compliment the president for coming up with a model in Syria that we probably should have done in Iraq. This is a game changer with the killing of Baghdadi. This is a moment where we should all be proud of our American military and our intelligence community. This is a moment where President Trump's worst critic should say, "Well done, Mr. President."
Senator Graham, thank you.
Senator Lindsey Graham there live right after meeting with the president on the news of the morning. And as we have been telling you, Islamic on the IG report, which we're fully expecting FISA abuse. And of course, last week we learned that now John Durham's investigation has turned criminal.
Right. Well, I think that we've been spending far too much time on this impeachment inquiry. But if we're going to do it, let's talk to the most important witnesses. Every American deserves to know when Adam Schiff's staff met with this whistleblower that started a process to try and remove the president from office. And I think every American sees that Adam Schiff, the person who promised that Donald Trump was going to see significant jail time because he had substantial evidence of collusion with Russia and that he was engaged in treasonous activity as a Russian agent, which ultimately proved not to be true, shouldn't be the person running this impeachment inquiry, and it shouldn't be running through the Intelligence Committee in behind closed doors meetings that we can't talk about openly. So hopefully that'll end. And what the people just saw there, I agree with what Lindsey Graham just said about the president really changing the rules of engagement. He's doing that across the board with respect to fighting terrorism, with respect to approaching trade deals, with respect to how we grow the economy, all of those things. Give this president credit. While he's attacked shamelessly, baselessly, repeatedly by his critics, he keeps providing solutions and doing good things for the American people, and I think they see that.
And do you expect in the IG report that we will see criminal referrals from the Inspector General, and what will that mean for John Durham's investigation, which is now an out-and-out criminal investigation?
Well, I don't believe in coincidences, and the end of the Inspector General's investigation and his impending report coming at the same time as the start of John Durham announcing that this is now a criminal probe is not a coincidence. The Inspector General, you have to remember, has the ability to investigate folks at the Department of Justice and the FBI. He doesn't have the ability to indict. He can only make criminal referrals. He's done that before with respect to the director of the FBI and the deputy director of the FBI. And as I have been telling you for the better part of 2 years here, we have seen things that we believe are the basis of should be a criminal referral as it relates to the FISA process that the Inspector General's report that's coming out in the next week or two will address. John Durham announcing that this is now a criminal matter is a significant development. It means that there is a reasonable indication or suspicion that crimes have occurred. Doesn't mean that he's going to charge anyone, but it does mean that he's going to impanel a grand jury to compel testimony, subpoenas, and people, documents and people, to come and address the origins of this Russia investigation where a president was accused of treason, falsely accused of treason, by a party that paid for a fake, phony dossier, and the Democrats are now unhappy that John Durham is looking at whether or not there was a proper predicate for it. I don't believe there was.
And we should also point out that one of the people who accused the president of treason quite publicly was John Brennan, the former CIA director, and John Brennan's fingerprint seems to be all over the origins of the Russia probe.
The importance there, again, of John Durham having the ability with a grand jury to bring in folks outside of the Department of Justice, outside of the FBI, which Michael Horowitz couldn't do and can't address in his report. John Durham will have the ability to bring in intelligence officials like John Brennan, like James Clapper, and explain why this, how this Russia Trump collusion, treason investigation got started, where the proper predicate was for it. And again, there are real questions about that, and I have great confidence in Attorney General Bill Barr and John Durham to get answers to that. And many of us think it's long overdue that there's accountability for much of what has not been explained about a claim against President Trump that was clearly false, and the special counsel said as much.
Congressman, it's good to have you on the program this morning. Thanks so much.
You bet, Maria.
Congressman
Thanks.
John Ratcliffe joining us now. We are getting reaction right now from Congressman